Welcome to Relanza, the podcast that connects you with expert voices on the most innovative topics in language education. I'm Mercedes Querol from the Universidad Internacional de La Rioja and the coordinator of this space. Don't miss it. Relanza starts right now.
Hi there, Relanza friends. We're here with a new podcast. My name is Darío Banegas from the University of Edinburgh, and today we're going to talk about multimodal literacy in the language curriculum. And to talk about this really fascinating topic, we have with us Dr. Noelia Ruiz-Madrid from Universitat Jaume I. Hello, Noelia.
Hello, good morning.
It's a real pleasure, and thank you so much for being part of Relanza. And just so our listeners can get to know you a little better, could you tell us three things you'd like people to know about you?
Well, I work at Universitat Jaume I. I belong to the GRAPE Research Group, which I co-coordinate together with Dr. Fortanet. And I love working in teams, and one of our main lines of research is multimodality, especially applied to language teaching and learning.
Thanks, Noelia. So let's move straight on to the questions we've prepared for you about the topic and your experience, your expertise. And perhaps first we need to define what multimodal literacy actually is. So how would you define it, and why do you think it's important to integrate it into language teaching today?
Well, I think if we all just think about how we communicate in any context and any situation, and we just observe, we quickly realize that we don't just use words or sound. We also use our hands. We use our eyes to focus our gaze. We use intonation to sometimes try to make people pay more attention to what we're saying or to emphasize what we want to communicate. We also use different sounds, even our body, our bodily communication, we get closer to the person, we move away, we move around. So if we simply observe how we communicate, we'll realize that for effective communication, we need more than just words. And that's exactly what it's about, multimodal communication and multimodal literacy. Being aware of how the use of different semiotic modes or the resources we use for communicating beyond the words and sounds that we produce, how they contribute to meaning, how they help us communicate effectively. So multimodal literacy would be that competence that allows us to be competent, so to speak, in knowing how to use effectively all the resources available to us to communicate. Resources that are not only linguistic, but also paralinguistic, gestural, or even other elements that can help us. For example, if I have to explain what a bottle is, well, showing the bottle itself. So that would be multimodal literacy, that training we need.
Crystal clear, Noelia, because perhaps sometimes we think about multimodal literacy only when there's technological mediation, like digitization, but it's clear that multimodality also exists in the physical world, as you said, gestures, objects, etc. And regarding, that very clear definition, could you share with us a concrete example of a multimodal activity or project that has worked well in the context of language teaching?
Well, we're working at the university level. And we've also started to do some work on training at the secondary education. At university level, we've introduced training in multimodal competence, in English for specific purposes courses, in academic English courses, for example. In academic English, we have our students analyze Instagram reels about dissemination, about scientific dissemination, and then we have them produce their own short videos. For that, we use an analysis tool called GRAPE Mass, which is a multimodal analysis tool that helps students not only analyze the language and how it's used, but also how other semiotic resources are used, how they contribute to constructing a message that is more persuasive, more attractive to the audience. That's one of the practices we do. Another one is our students analyze product pitches, the pitch, those short sales presentations, and they see which resources the seller uses to sell their product more effectively, not just language, but the images, the gestures they use, gestures, intonation, music, everything that accompanies or creates the message. And we make them analyze that. And then they create their own pitch, their own short presentation. We do the same with video CVS, for example. We have the students analyze video CVs, get them to analyze all the multimodal structure of the video CV, not just the language, because we must not forget we're language teachers, but we're aware that language is accompanied by many other resources that make that enhance it and make communication more complex, but also more effective. So after analyzing and reflecting together, they create their own video CV in which they not only focus on what linguistic structures they need, but also on which semiotic resources they can use to make that video CV, that final product, more effective. And those are the types of practices we have. Are they effective? Well, we've noticed that students become much more aware of the potential and the importance of multimodal resources after having that joint reflection with them on multimodal communication, and they value them, and they use elements that they might not have included before or would have used unconsciously without giving them the pragmatic and functional weight needed to build an efficient message.
Wonderful. I mean, right, it really helps students become more aware of the range of tools, let's say, available, right, to construct meaning.
Exactly. Another practice I implement with my students in the secondary education master's program is very, very interesting. They use digital portfolios. You mentioned earlier, that multimodal communication is often associated with the digital environment, and that's true. The digital environment allows us to integrate different formats and different semiotic, elements. When we create a digital communication artifact, or when we're in a digital communicative situation like ours right now, during editing, you can add music, subtitles, you can include many more resources than you'd have in physical communication. And for example, what I ask them to do as final project is a digital portfolio where they can include any kind of learning evidence in any format, videos, WhatsApp conversations, Instagram posts they've used, digital documents, audio recordings, work they do in Google Drive, presentations, that is, all the pieces of learning evidence and work they do during the course, they incorporate them or make them build a more complex construct of learning, which is a digital portfolio, and which responds to the need to integrate multimodal pedagogy, in this kind of courses. And it makes them more aware of the full potential of not only of the digital environment, but also of the semiotic resources we can use in any communicative setting, digital or not, which can serve as scaffolding for language learning and teaching.
Wonderful, of course, because all these are examples contextualized in teacher education. So then, they also give future teachers examples and opportunities to think about their own practices when they go into schools, for example. And so regarding that, on this topic, my next question is, what changes do you think are necessary in today's curriculum so that multimodal literacy isn't just an add-on, but as in the examples you've shared, an integral part of, in this case, students' language learning?
Well, that's a really, really interesting question. So it's a long one too. Yeah, very relevant, and it's true. It's true. For example, here in Spain, in the primary and secondary curriculum, the latest reform has introduced multimodal competence as a basic competence, digital competence, and multimodal competence, which means we now have to face it from a transversal point of view, and not only from the perspective of the language field, right? of language teaching and learning. I think that the use of discourse genres or approaching the teaching of any subject from the point of genre or from the point of view of multimodal discourse will allow this transversal introduction. In any discipline, teaching and learning are multimodal. So having activities that make us reflect on the potential or on the functionality and importance of the different semiotic resources, whether in physical or digital communication or in products, in physical or digital artifacts that can be created or used by teachers or students, reflecting on what we're going to teach and what multimodal elements it includes. That needs to happen in all disciplines. And for that, I think we need to address teacher training from the very beginning, from the perspective of multimodal pedagogy and multimodal learning. And if we do that from the start with a more open vision, it can lead to this transversal interdisciplinary integration at all SEC, all stages and education levels, primary, secondary, and of course, university. This is being done in other countries. There are curricula like in Singapore, which already includes multimodal competence from primary school, from secondary school, and in a transversal interdisciplinary way. I think we need to learn, we need to see how it's being done, how effective or not it is, and how it really responds to today's communicative needs, well, the current ones and the not so current ones too. But that we're only now that we're realizing the importance these elements have in teaching and learning, not only in languages, but across all disciplines. So we're seeing it in research we're doing, for example, with teachers who are teaching mechanical engineering or economics in English, and how semiotic resources help them convey complex concepts in their field, how they help them explain, how semiotic resources become the scaffolding they use to transmit when words don't get there, when a linguistic explanation isn't enough. And I think that's how we should do it.
Yes, indeed. I mean, first, on the one hand, what you're saying about looking at what's happening in other education systems where multimodal literacy is already embedded, not just, as you rightly said, in language teaching and learning, but across the whole curriculum. Because ultimately, of course, learning experiences, regardless of the discipline, are inevitably going to have that multimodality present.
Exactly, they will, because we communicate multimodally, no matter the discipline we're communicating in. So it's something that really needs to be present across all disciplines. It's very curious because, for example, here in Spain, multimodal competence has been introduced as a basic competence in the curriculum, but when you look at textbooks or at the materials being produced, there aren't really any activities that invite them a kind of metacognitive aim reflection on the use of multimodality, nor is there any meta language being used that would help students, to identify their level of multimodal competence, or to recognize the names of the different semiotic resources. That's essential. So meta language, the use and teaching of meta language, and metacognitive reflection on multimodal competence and on its effectiveness, both in teaching and in learning processes, are fundamental. And these are activities that could be implemented in any discipline, but there are no materials, no activities, because firstly, many teachers are still unfamiliar with the concept itself and are not familiar with strategies or practices based on multimodal pedagogy. And that's essential. If we don't address it from that first step, it'll be very complex, very, very difficult to implement it as the curriculum sets out. But the curriculum does state it, it's there, we have to address it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's such a fascinating topic to keep discussing, Noelia, but we must at some point wrap up the podcast. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
A pleasure being with you all. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Well, with us was Noelia Ruiz-Madrid talking about multimodal literacy in the language curriculum. And we invite you to keep exploring and listening to the rest of the podcasts in this Relanza series. Many thanks.
Relanza is a project funded by the Directorate for Knowledge Transfer at UNIR and developed in collaboration with the Prodigy Research Group and the Language Curriculum SIG of the British Association for Applied Linguistics. Don't forget to visit our website to learn more about this topic and to find ideas for your lessons.